in terms of muting your microphone and switching off your video. In terms of, yeah, so we on, like I said earlier on, is measuring the performance of the economy. And then also we're going to be speaking to the foreign sector. Particularly, we're going to be focusing on, absolute and relative or comparative advantage, as well as I'm just going to give a small little introduction to your foreign exchange rates. Okay.
Gershwin, sorry, can I disturb you for a second?
No problem. No problem.
Can someone please send me the notes? I can't find the notes on my Unisa.
Okay, it is in the chat. You can download it.
Okay.
Just look on the right hand side in the chat over there. There is links to download those.
Okay. I can only see for the attendance register. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Sure thing.
I'm sorry, I'll paste the link to the notes, and then for the student that just inquired, I will also paste the link to where you can access the notes. You need to be registered or log onto the Western Cape Regional Portal. So please just follow all those steps, and then you will be able to access all the other notes that are loaded.
Thank you very much, Bronwyn. So tonight, guys, for after hour, we're going to have a small little 10-minute break, just for you to get some more coffee or tea, or have a body break. Okay. So let's get rolling. Yeah, as I said earlier on, we're going to be focusing on measuring the performance of the economy. These are just some background notes, but there is some calculations in over here. So I will be stressing certain points. Okay. I'm going to try and go through this as quickly as possible, but you guys can stop me at any time. Just push, basically just put a point in the chat over there, and then we can, yeah, I'll just take a break and just get some more information or any questions from you. Okay, so I've got my cell phone over here, and I will be looking at that as we continue with the class. Okay, so yeah, let's carry on. So in terms of, I see this is not supposed to be over here. Let me just page through. I hope I didn't. Yeah, I see that's a duplicate on top over here. So, okay, so of course, the first thing what we're going to be speaking about is the 5 macroeconomic objectives. Okay, they are economic growth, your full employment, your price stability. When we talk about price stability, what are we talking about? It's all about inflation. Okay, then there's also your balance of payment stability and your equitable distribution of income. When we're talking about that, it's basically income inequality. As you guys know, that we have one of the widest gap in inequality within the world. Around about 2003, we were second to Brazil. Brazil has elapsed us now. Essentially, when you're measuring the gap between inequality, or let me rather say income inequality, it's the Gini Coefficient. So normally, yeah, it's one of the measures that they use, and it ranges between from the one spectrum from 0 to 1. Okay, with 1 being the most unequal. Okay, and at the end of the class, I just want to actually thinking now, I want to be talking to you guys about the quarterly labor force survey that was released today. This was quarter 2 for 2020. Okay, it actually showed a decrease in unemployment, but I'll speak to that a little bit because we analyzed some of the numbers today. So I'll speak to that a little bit, and we can just have a general chat about it. And of course, all of the stuff just relates back to the class. So that is why I want to just briefly touch on that. Okay. And then the next little point over here is, when we're talking about economic growth, what are we talking about? We're talking about gross domestic product. That's what that acronym GDP stands for over there, right? It's basically, it's defined by, or the definition is, it's the total value of all final goods and services produced within the boundaries of a country in a particular period, usually in 1 year. Okay, and it's important in terms of GDP. Let's say 2016, it does not include the purchase and sale of previously used goods, such as, for example, you selling or buying a used boat or a used car. All right, it doesn't include that. So how do we measure GDP? Right, there's the production method, there's the expenditure method, and there's the income method. So I want you to focus a little bit on the expenditure method over there, right? That's your final goods and services. When we talk about, you can see over there, y is equal to c plus I plus g plus x minus m. So the reason why I'm focusing on that at the specific moment now is because when we go to the simple Keynesian model, that is what we're going to be talking about. Your y is your total expenditure or total income is equal to your c, which is your total consumption, plus your I, which is your total investment by firms, right? Plus your G, which is your total government expenditure, plus your X minus your M. Now your X is your total exports, and your M or your Z, you can use it either M or Z, right? That is your total imports. Okay. So that is fine over there. Just the last little point right at the bottom over here. Just saying that there's also GNI, which is your gross national income. Okay, these are definitions, so you're going to have to study this. I'm not going to go through it, but I'm just highlighting the most important stuff to you. Okay, in the case of GDE, which is your gross domestic expenditure, that is your C, which is your total consumption, as I said earlier on, your I, which is your total investment by firms, and your G, which is your total government expenditure. Now your C is your total consumption, right? But that's by consumers. So the C is consumers, always just keep it in your mind, and your I is total investment by firms. What are firms investing by? Investing in? They're investing in capital goods, okay, which is equipment and machinery. Those are capital goods, okay. So in terms of the next slide, just a brief synopsis. What is GDP? It's your level of economic activity. What is your gross national income or your GNI? That's a measure of income or your standard of living. Your GDE over there is your total value of goods and services produced in a country. Hence, it excludes your X minus your M. Now, your X is your exports and your M is your imports. In other words, we are leaving out the foreign sector. So we are saying, listen, what is the domestic demand within the country? And that when people talk about domestic demand, they're talking about GDE, your gross domestic expenditure. Okay. And then in terms of your measurement of GDP at current prices and at constant prices, I'm sure you guys have heard this before. So when you hear about people talking about GDP at current prices, right, it excludes your inflation. Okay. When people talk about your constant prices, that is when they include your your inflation. So in other words, that's real GDP. Okay, I'm not going to read through all of these, but that's the important thing that I want you to take out of all the stuff over here. All right, GDP at current prices is nominal GDP. It doesn't include the effect of inflation. Okay, as opposed to your real GDP, which is your GDP at constant prices, which includes the effect of inflation. Okay. So eventually what we come to is, I'm going to show you how to actually work this out. Right? Let me just try and make this a little bit bigger. The last time I tried to make it into a slideshow, it didn't want to work. So let's just see quickly. Can all of you guys see that? Is it a bit better now?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. So essentially, when you're looking at calculations, right? And I want you to write this down, and don't focus on what you're seeing in front of you now. Okay? Just write this down wherever you are. Just write this down. So most of the time, you're going to get a percentage increase calculation. And when I say that, essentially what I'm saying to you is, if you had to accrue a number to 2020 and you accrue a number to 2019, right? Any number, doesn't matter what the number is. Sorry. When I talk to you about percentage increase, I'm taking the latest number, which is 2020. I'm minusing my 2019's number, and I'm dividing again by 2019's number. Okay. And that is especially relevant in the calculation at the bottom over here. You can say, okay, let's for example, I want to know what was the exchange, I'm trying to think of something really simple now. What was my salary increase for 2015 compared to 2020? All right. So I'm going to take my you see, I had coffee earlier on, but it's clearly not working. So I'm going to take my net salary for 2020. I'm going to minus my net salary from 2015. I think I said 2015 earlier, right? That number. And then I'm going to divide it by my net salary for 2015. And then I multiply that number by 100. So essentially what I'm working out over here is my percentage increase from 2015 to 2020, or the difference between those dates. Okay. So if I had to move, we're going to come back to the top one over here. So let's, for example, at the bottom over here, I want to calculate my economic growth. Remember I spoke about real GDP earlier on? And what is real GDP? It is your gross domestic product at constant prices. It is my real GDP is my GDP at constant prices. Okay, so it includes the effect of inflation, right? So I've got two years over here, 2015 and 2014. Okay, so what I'm going to do is between those 2 years, I'm going to say my economic growth for 2015 is equal to my real GDP for 2015 minus my real GDP for 2014 divided by my real GDP for 2014 multiplied by 100. So in terms of the numbers over there, it's 950 million minus 910 million divided by 910 million multiplied by 100. Now, please, in your exam, you can write it like that. Of course, we're not going to be writing this stuff now. And if you had to be writing it out, you might just get disturbed by the amount of zeros. So rather than just write the numbers out, you say 950 minus 910, right, divided by 910. So it's 40 million divided by 910 million, which means your economic growth between those, or the percentage change in terms of between those 2 years is 4.39%. Okay, so whenever you do have an exam, please, because it could be in billions. I mean, 6 zeros, 1 and 6 zeros is a million, 1 and 9 zeros is a billion, but you could maybe just leave 1 zero out, and then you're looking for trouble. Okay. And then, okay, let's go to the top over here. So what are we working out over here? We're working out your real GDP. Okay. So let's assume that we have a base year, right? And that base year is in 2010. Can you guys see this on top over here? For 2010, at your base year, which is CPI, is 100. Right now, it's 2015. Okay, where you have your base year. Okay, so we're working out between 2010 and 2012, right? Just as an aside, also, and you guys can put a note on this, your real GDP is always going to be less than your nominal GDP. Okay, your real GDP is always going to be less than your nominal GDP, right? So as I'll give you an example, I think, let me just, last time I looked at the numbers for the Western Cape. The Western Cape is about 638 billion, right? That is your current prices. So that is your nominal GDP. I might be wrong. That might be wrong. I'm just thinking now quickly. I'll check it again while we're having a break. I might be thinking that is the real GDP. But holistically, so Africa's real GDP is around about 2 trillion. Okay, so of course it's 9 different provinces, but in terms of GDP, that's what the numbers are looking at. So coming back to the example over here, you got 2010, your nominal GDP is 250 million, your CPI, which is the base year, is 100. Okay, so for 2012, your nominal GDP is 318 million. Okay, and your CPI, when I say CPI, it's a consumer price index. It's inflation. Okay, so how do I work this out? Right, we say real GDP for 2012 is equal to my nominal GDP for 2012 multiplied by my CPI for 2010 divided by my CPI for 2012. So you're going to need to memorize this formula. Right? They're not going to give it to you in your exam, but you need to memorize this. So then essentially what it comes down to is 380 million divided by 125. So of course now I have 380 million divided by 125 multiplied by 100. My real GDP for 2012 is 304 million. So note that number over there. Real GDP for 2012 is how much? 304 million. And the reason why that number is smaller than my nominal GDP for 2012 of 380 million is because it includes the effect of inflation. Okay. Is there any questions related to this? I'm going to pause a little bit now.
Yes. Just a quick one, and this is maybe not specifically with this work, but you mentioned that we won't have the formula and we must memorize it. If we're writing from home, surely we have that formulas on the side. I mean, is that allowed? Sorry.
Yeah, you caught me out over there. Yeah, it's going to be an open book. You see, it's difficult. I'm still transitioning to this writing exams at home, and yeah. Of course, you're going to be having it at home, but yeah, it's end of the day is it doesn't matter if you're writing an open book or a closed book exam. If you don't memorize the stuff, it necessarily will mean that you're going to spend maybe 5 to 10 minutes looking for that, unless you're very quick with your hands and and you've got the stuff readily at hand. Or yeah, so you'll maybe spend maybe 3 or 4 minutes extra as opposed to you memorizing the stuff. Let me rather put it to you that way. Okay. Is there any other questions?
We can't see the work.
Can somebody just mute themselves over there? It's some interference now.
Please zoom
Is there a
out.
question?
Kindly zoom out. We can't see the numbers properly.
Sorry. Just hold it quickly. Deral, can you mute yourself and put your video off, please? Yes, there was a question.
Yes, I was saying kindly zoom out because we can't see the numbers at all.
Okay, thank you. Is that a little bit better?
Yes, thank you.
Pleasure.
This might not be possible for everybody, but it's best if you use 2 devices. I know it's easy for me to say, but I just find it easier that way. If you guys can use 2 devices, like your cell phone and your laptop, and you can have your notes and expand it as much as you want, because it's tricky for us to see on this little screen as well.
Okay. Thank you for that. Is that Jonathan?
It's Mr. Deaf, Michael.
Sorry, how do we do that?
Mr. Deaf. Mr. Deaf, Michael, can you just elaborate a bit further, please? No, what Michael is trying to say is use your cell phone, your cell phone and the combination of your cell phone as well as your laptop. Guys, can I move on now?
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry,
Yes,
you said that nominal GDP is always going to be a larger number than real GDP, but if there's deflation with respect to the base year, surely it could be lower.
What is your understanding of deflation?
So the inverse of inflation, so prices going down.
Yeah, I didn't want to go too hardcore. Remember, this is first year, so I don't want to. A lot of people don't even know what hyperinflation or deflation is. So yeah, if you got a declining inflation, but as a rule of thumb, all I'm saying to you is, yes, that is going to be the case. That your nominal GDP or your current your GDP at current prices is going to be higher than your real GDP or your GDP at constant prices. Okay, but spot on.
Sure. Yeah, no, sure. It's I thought deflation was covered in the text, so anyway, no issue, man. Thanks a lot.
No, it's a pleasure, and it's good questions and it's good comments as long as we're all engaging. But yeah, I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible for the moment because I don't want to go into too hardcore stuff. That is why I'm a bit pensive at times to explain too much because had we been in a live environment, I can pick up on people's body language. It's nobody standing in front of me now, so I'm just trying to keep things a bit uniform, a bit more simpler. Let me speak a bit louder, maybe make some make certain points so that the overall message comes through. So I'm hoping I'm actually doing that and not trying to overcomplicate, make things a bit too complex for people at times. Hey guys, so you need to, it's always the pace that I'm going at. You guys can put comments on the side over there because then I can step it up a little bit. But because if somebody's not going to say to me, Gershon, then I'm going to keep it at the normal pace that I have been going with the previous classes. Okay, so I really appreciate that. But yeah, okay. So in terms of measuring unemployment, so what is the unemployment rate, right? It's your number of unemployed persons as a percentage of the total number of people who are able and willing to work. So if the simplest definition is, and just think about this and write it next to you, you've got the number of employed as your numerator, right? And divided by the labor force. Pardon me. So the labor force is your unemployed plus your employed. It's your unemployed plus your employed. That's your labor force. So it is a ratio, right? Your unemployment rate is your number of employed divided by your number of employed and your number of unemployed. Okay. So now they try and make it a bit more difficult, right? They talk about the narrow or the strict unemployment rate, or they talk about the broad or expanded unemployment rate, right? In the case of Stats SA, or what they actually released today is the official unemployment rate. So that is your narrow or your strict definition, right? That is your number of unemployed persons divided by your employed plus your unemployed, okay? When we're talking about the broad unemployment rate, right? This is going to include your non-searching unemployed. This is going to include your non-searching unemployed. So of course now your narrow versus your broad, your narrow is going to be smaller, right? In the case of the Western Cape, what was it, 20.4 last quarter? Now it's 16.3%, okay? Once you start including your non-searching unemployed, and people call that also your discouraged workers. People have basically given up looking for work. Your non-searching unemployed or your discouraged workers, right? As we actually preparing for the exam, then I'll give you examples of that. We will be working through that. I'm just trying to go through this very quickly so we can get to the foreign sector. Okay, but I hope that makes sense. All right, is there any questions on that? Guys, you can
yes, I do actually have a question. Do you mean the UR equals number of the second point? Do you mean that the total labor force is made up of employed plus searching, or multiplied by employed plus searching?
Okay, thank you very much for that. I see that's a typo over there. Apologies. So what I'm trying to say over here is that this should have been that's definitely, just bar that out. I'll take that out again. Let me write that in the chat quickly for you guys. Okay. So what I'm saying to you is, I'll make it a you are right. It's narrow is equal to your number of unemployed divided by your number of employed plus unemployed, your number of unemployed. Right? That is your narrow or strict definition. That's the official definition of your unemployment rate. Is the number of unemployed divided by the number of employed plus the number of unemployed. Okay? In the Western Cape, the number of unemployed is around about 600,000. Right? So now, when I'm talking about the unemployment rate, or the broad one, broad or expanded, here I'm saying to you, it's the number of unemployed, and I don't type very fast, plus my discouraged workers or my non-searching unemployed. I'm just going to make it DW, discouraged workers, right? Divided by my number of, I'm going to say my employed, number of employed, plus my number of unemployed, plus my discouraged workers. Okay? So the top one over there is going to be less than the bottom one, surely because in the bottom one, I'm including my non-searching unemployed or my discouraged workers. So in the case of the Western Cape, we have the lowest expanded or broad unemployment rate simply because we have the less discouraged workers, right? And the reason for this is because we don't have a lot of rural, as opposed to, or as compared to other provinces, we don't have as much rural areas, right? We're not in the Eastern Cape, there's a lot of rural areas. The Northern Cape is a lot of rural areas. And relatively, our infrastructure is a bit better. So people get around a bit better as opposed or relative to the other provinces. And that's a simple reason why. Okay, does it make more sense?
Yes, that's 100%. Thank you.
Sorry about that typo, guys. So in terms of this last little point over here, measuring prices, the consumer price index. What is the consumer price index? It's an index of the prices of a representative basket of consumer goods and services. Okay, so it's a weighted basket of consumer goods and services. Right? So with the next example over here, let me just try and make this a bit bigger. This example, I included this. I had to, when I had to become a tutor, I had to write the exam, and this is one of the examples, or one of the questions that they asked me, right? So I just included this for just as an example. I've given it to you, but just for you to work through, not necessarily going to ask you that in the exam. Okay, not to scare anybody, right? The one thing that I want you to focus on at the bottom over there is the inflation rate. So recall what I said to you earlier on, in terms of how you work out your percentage changes, right? Your percentage increases or decreases, right? Your percentage change. It is your latest year minus your previous year divided by your previous year. Of course, you're going to put a number to that. So, sorry. So in terms of inflation rate for June 2015, right? I'm going to take my CPI for June 2015. I'm going to subtract my CPI for June 2014, and then I'm going to divide that by my CPI for June 2014, and then I'm going to multiply that number by 100. Okay. So it's 193.2 minus, I'm not going to go through the numbers. You're going to end up with an inflation rate for June 2015 of 1.95. Okay. So that is why I stressed the percentage increase or percentage change formula early on to you. Okay, So we use that to work out the economic growth rate early on when we use the real GDP numbers for the specific years, right? And in this case, to work out the inflation rate between June 2014 and June 2015, we're using the exact same formula. So it's the latest minus the earliest divided by the earliest. Okay, does it make sense?
Yes, it does.
No, awesome, guys. So in terms of this over here, it's called the balance of payments, right? Remember when I said earlier, when I started, I said one of the 5 macroeconomic goals, objectives, is balance of payment stability, right? Balance of payment stability. What does the balance of payments comprise of? That on the one side is your current account, right? That you export your imports, and on the far right hand side, it's your financial account, right? So it's your income receipts from those exports and imports, and the money also paying out your payments that you're paying out. Okay. So it's a combination of those two, which is going to make up your balance of payments. All right. So when you have a current account surplus, your value of your exports, right, is going to be greater than your value of your imports. When you have a current account deficit, your value of your imports is going to be greater than your value of your exports. Okay, and that's been the case for South Africa for many, many years. Our value of our imports has been greater than our value of our exports because we are a net importer, right? As South Africa. And what are we importing? We're importing a lot of our fuel, right? We're importing intermediate goods. Okay. There's also a surplus on the financial account means that more funds flowed into South Africa than flowed during the year. Surplus on financial account, more funds flowed into SA than flowed during the year. A deficit on the financial account, more funds flowed out of South Africa than. There's definitely typos over here also. But essentially what I'm trying to say to you is when there's a deficit, it's not a good thing. Right? More money is flowing out. When there's a surplus, in other words, we're having more exports, right? Then there's more money coming into South Africa. Okay. And then the last bit over here, I'm speaking about measuring the income inequality. Remember I spoke to you earlier on about the Gini coefficient. Essentially, it ranges between 0 and 1, with 0 being the most unequal and 1 being the most equal. So we've been hovering around 0.63, 0.64 for quite many years. I think that's for the Western Cape. I'm just remembering there's certain districts, that's hovering around that. But I think the Western Cape is 0.64, and I think South Africa is 0.6. Western Cape is marginally lower, but essentially what it's saying to you is that there's a big gap between income inequality within South Africa. Okay, and it's very, very sad. Okay, can I take a pause, or can you guys? Let me just have a sip of my cooling over here. And then I'll pause and then just open for questions.
Sorry, sir.
Yes, I'm listening.
Yes, on the financial account, on the deficit and the surplus, you said there's a typo. I'm not understanding, I think, that statement that says more funds flowed into South Africa than flowed during the year. What does that mean?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm trying to say to you over here. Rather just negate that. Just leave that out over there. I'm going to have to fix that and resend it to you guys. So just leave that, and you guys are welcome to go through to your textbook. There is a document that I want to send through to you. That's the reason why I actually asked for all of your email addresses. So I can send that through to you. And thank you very much, Lizzie, for that. Okay. It is a document that basically will assist you in terms of studying as well, but also that explains, it gives a brief synopsis of all the key chapters. Okay. and I will assist you with your studying and setting up and preparing for your examination. Okay, so just negate that for the moment, please. All right.
Yes, thank you.
Are we happy? Thank you very much. Guys, can I move on? And in 25 minutes, we're just going to have a small break, eh? For 10 minutes. Can all of you see the slide for the foreign sector? No, T, we're not on a break yet, eh? And it opposite. Sorry?
No, all I can see is a slide with the course and then your name on it.
Okay.
Like a white slide with blue text on it.
Thank you. Are we good now? Are you guys seeing the foreign sector slide?
Not yet, but I think if you just move your cursor, but yes, there we go, unit 4.
Yeah. Okay, so objectives, I've gone through these already. Right, I'm going to go through those again. So in your books, you guys, most of you have economics for South African students. These are just key things that you should actually look out for. Some of them might differ depending on the edition that you have, right? But like I said to you, don't stress too much about this, because without this thing that I'm going to mail to you, you can focus on some of those things. What I have done, I've actually taken some stuff from there, and I've actually compiled some of these notes using that. So just for you to note that. Pardon? Okay, so the first real thing that you need to understand is, pardon, is what is the difference between absolute versus relative advantage. Okay, so relative could also be comparative. It's the same thing. Those two words are synonyms. Relative and comparative are synonyms. Okay, absolute versus relative or comparative, right? So when I'm talking about absolute and comparative advantage, it's two important concepts in international trade. Okay, so it largely influences how and why nations devote, or where they actually where they're going to allocate their limited resources to. Okay, when we talk about absolute advantage, all I'm saying to you, the key words you need to just remember over here is absolute advantage, right? Is where do I have superior production capabilities, right? Where am I producing something, right, the most and at a faster rate, okay? And normally when you look at numbers, right, one country is going to produce, let's say for example, France is going to produce 20 boxes of wine, right? Versus China's 10. I'm just using a silly example now. Clearly, in terms of an absolute advantage, France is going to have an absolute advantage in terms of wine production as opposed to China. Because in terms of numbers now, they're producing 20 boxes of wine versus China's 10. So it's all about superior production capabilities. I'm producing more and at a faster rate. So those are the key words that you must just always remember, okay? A superior production capabilities, right? However, when I'm talking about comparative or real advantage, it's all about opportunity costs, right? And what was the definition of the opportunity cost? It's the value to the decision maker of the best foregone opportunity. There was a trade-off, okay? It's the value to the decision maker of the best foregone opportunity, okay? So the opportunity cost of a given option is equal to the forfeited, I gave it up, benefits that could have been gained by choosing the alternative. If the opportunity cost of choosing to produce a particular good is lower for one nation than for others, then that nation is said to have a comparative advantage. And then they must specialize. Okay? Then they must specialize. So in other words, the key thing I'm saying to you over here is absolute advantage. Always remember superior production capabilities. I'm going to produce more and one good than another country, right? But when I'm talking about comparative or relative advantage, it's where my opportunity costs in producing a good is the lowest. If you understand that, then it's sorted, then you've got this. Okay? So now it becomes a little bit more. Is there any questions on that? You guys can unmute, or did I explain it adequately?
Kindly just go over it again. I didn't really get it.
Okay. No, that's fine. And am I talking loud enough?
Yes.
Yes. Oh.
Your voice projection is perfect.
It breaks up a little, but it's
me?
not your fault, clearly.
Okay, okay. So the one thing is, when I'm talking about absolute advantage, I'm talking about when a country produces a good, right? That country has superior production capabilities. Check these words out over here. Superior production capabilities. And write this down on the side over there, right? When I'm talking about comparative or relative advantage, I'm bringing the whole concept of the opportunity cost into it again, okay? So a country should, when a country has comparative advantage, it has the lowest opportunity cost in producing that good or service, and therefore it should specialize in the production of that good or service. Okay. So ideally, you can have absolute advantage but in producing a good or service, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have comparative or relative advantage in it. It's better to have, when you want to specialize in the production of a good or service, then you must have comparative advantage. Okay. So the most important is where your opportunity costs are lower. In other words, your trade-off is lowest. What you're sacrificing for one good for another is lowest. Your trade-off is lowest. Okay. I hope I explained it a bit better this time.
So, Gershon, can I just ask, just to understand it in my mind, even if one country, let's say one country is better in 2 products than 1, so there is still an opportunity cost, would they then be comparatively, would they then have a comparative advantage, not an absolute advantage, because 2 or more products, opportunity cost comes into play, and if they have if the opportunity cost is less, it gives them a comparative advantage still, even though the advantage is absolute in the sense that they are better in both, i.e. better in in all? Does that question make sense?
No, it's a very good question, and I think with the examples that we're going to have, right? Then it's going to be you're going to understand. But in short, all I'm going to say is a country can have an absolute advantage in an absolute advantage as well as a comparative advantage in the production of a good or service. Okay. But yeah, let me rather explain it to you this way, because this is 8 out of 10 times you are going to get this question in the exam. So that is why I have put 2 examples in here for you today. Here's 2 examples that we're going to be ending off. And each time I'm going to explain it, but with the second one, I'm going to ask that one of you take me through it. Right? So that you don't make the mistake come exam time. Yeah. Okay. So essentially what I have over here is, when you get the question in the exam, it looks like this. Your question looks like this. On your left hand, on your left hand column over here, you've got country A and country B. Then you've got the good or service, right? In terms of the quantities. In this case, it's 90 and 20. And in tea production, 60 and 40. So what I do is, or you might, let me just go back there again. Or you might get country A as a column and country B as a column. Okay, note that. Country A or country B can be columns, and your goods or your services can be rows. So when I'm saying that, and guys, you sometimes will get one of you might just say, "Jeepers, what's a column? What's a row?" No worry, we've been to school many years ago, so it doesn't matter. You know, Excel spreadsheets doesn't matter. Horizontal is your row, running horizontal is your row, and your vertical is your columns. Okay. So what I'm saying to you is, if it comes the other way around, I always make my countries. It can be Germany, it can be France. I put that as a row. It just makes it easy for me to calculate. Okay, and I'll show you why. So does everybody see this? Because I know it's moving a little bit too fast in terms of between the two slides. You can just type yes, and then I'll carry on. Thank you for that. So our rows are France and Italy over here. Can you see I wrote opportunity cost for France and opportunity cost for Italy? So I've made my own blocks over here, right? So just coming back to that, just for you to note that up front. I have my countries, France, Italy, as rows, okay? I've got the goods for wine production and cheese production, right, in units, as my columns over here. So in terms of France now, France produces 20 units of wine, right? Let's say it could be a month, it could be a year. It doesn't matter how long it is. The point is the numbers over there. That's the important thing. So we've got France, 20 units of wine, producing 20 units of wine, and they're producing 20 units of cheese, right? As opposed to Italy's 30 units of wine, right? And 22 units of cheese. Now, I think it was Michael earlier on that asked the question, right? In terms of absolute advantage, what did I say? Who has the most superior production capabilities? Clearly, it's Italy, both for wine production and for cheese production. The reason being is because Italy is producing 30 units of wine versus France's 20. Italy is also producing 22 units of cheese as opposed to France's 10. So the first question or the first answer I'm going to say to you is, when you see this, now you know already in your head, okay? Italy has an absolute advantage in terms of wine as well as cheese production. Now the next question you ask yourself, right? It can be in multiple choice questions, which they're going to give to you, but you in your mind, once you got these numbers, right, just work it out. Don't look at the questions. Work the stuff out, because again, it doesn't matter how, you're going to have to work it out anyway. Okay? So now, right, you know that. Now I need to work out my opportunity costs, because whoever has the lowest opportunity cost will have a comparative advantage and will specialize in the production of that good or service, be it wine or cheese. Okay, so now I'm going to work out my opportunity costs. This is opportunity costs for France, right? I'm going to say 10 divided by 20. Okay, as you can see over here already, and this is a cheat, but I mean, I'm going to work it out, but intuitively, just look at this, all right? France is utilizing its resources, devoting its resources, right? Allocating its resources to wine and cheese production, okay? So it produces 20 units of wine and 10 units of cheese. So there's double the amount of wine as opposed to cheese production, okay? So what I do is I'll leave this as my denominator, the 20 over here, and I say 10 divided by 20, because what am I trying to work out? I'm trying to work out the opportunity cost of France for wine, right? So it's 10 divided by 20 is equal to 0.5 over 1, or 0.5, okay? So therefore, my opportunity cost for 1 unit of wine, is 0.5 units of cheese. So 1 over here, opportunity cost for 1 unit of wine is equal to 0.5 units of cheese. Will become more clearer right now. So now move to the right-hand quadrant over here. Okay. Now I'm wanting to work out the opportunity cost for 1 unit of cheese. Right? I want to work out the opportunity cost for 1 unit of cheese. Right? And this is the case for France now. So I say my denominator is still 10. So it's that divided by that. 20 divided by 10 is equal to 2 divided by 1. 2 divided by 1 is 2. Okay? But the reason why I'm saying 2 divided by 1 is because I want to say to you that the opportunity cost for 1 unit of cheese is equal to 2 units of wine. Okay? So let's just say, for example, for France now, what do we have? We've got 0.5 units of cheese and 2 units of wine. Right? 0.5 units of cheese. Right? 1 unit of wine is equal to 0.5 units of cheese. And 1 unit of cheese is equal to 2 units of wine. So that might be confusing you now, but it's become very clear once we work it out for Italy. So now you've got an idea, right? So I want to work out the opportunity cost for 1 unit of wine is my denominator is 30, right? Where I'm starting off, 30. So it's 22 divided by 30 is equal to 0.73 divided by 1, which is 0.73, right? So your opportunity cost for 1 unit, that's why I'm divided by 1, of wine is equal to 0.73 units of cheese, right? Just look on top over here, 0.5 units, 0.73, which one's the lowest? That's what when you're working the stuff out and you want to see, okay, which one is lowest, right? Clearly this one is lowest in terms of opportunity costs, okay? So now move to the far left, the right-hand quadrant over here, right at the bottom, right bottom quadrant, okay? So it is 30 divided by 22 is equal to 1.36 divided by 1, right? I'm working within cheese production for Italy, so I'm leaving my denominator as 22. So that's my numerator is 30 divided by 22, because I'm working out within Italy's quadrant over here, right? is equal to 1.36 divided by 1. In other words, my opportunity cost for 1 unit of cheese is equal to 1.36 units of wine. Okay, so within this column over here, in terms of cheese production, whose opportunity costs, right, in terms of opportunity cost for 1 unit of cheese is lowest? That's clearly the 1.36. Okay, so essentially what I'm saying to you is, or let me rather put it to you without reading at the bottom over there, right? Or let me rather just explain this, and somebody can do the one below this. Okay. France is going to specialize in what? Where does France have the lowest opportunity cost? It's definitely going to be wine production, because the opportunity cost for 1 unit of wine is 0.5 units of cheese, whereas Italy's is 0.73. So the 0.5 opportunity cost is lower than the 0.73. So France needs to specialize in wine production, although Italy produced more. Remember, Italy produced 30 units, whereas France produced 20. Right? Remember that? So in the case of cheese production over here, right, who had the lowest opportunity cost? France had opportunity cost for 1 unit of cheese was 2 units of wine, as opposed to Italy's 1.36 units of wine. 1.36 units. So clearly Italy has a comparative advantage, right, in cheese production. Okay, let me state it again differently to you. Although Italy had an absolute advantage in terms of wine and cheese production because it produced more than France, and possibly at a faster rate. Let's just use a silly example, right? Or produced more. Let me rather make it easy. France is going to specialize in wine production because it had a lower opportunity cost as opposed to Italy. And Italy is going to specialize in cheese production because it had a lower opportunity cost of 1.36 as opposed to France, or versus France. Does that make sense, guys? Or do you want me to read through?
Thanks.
Yes, it does.
Okay, because it's extremely tough to you know, I'm still, yeah, it's extremely tough at times to explain the stuff over here, and it will take a while if you start writing the stuff on the computer. So yeah, I'm working on sorting that out. I'm practicing it, but I'm not coming right. So it's a bit tough at times just to explain it or talk to it. But you guys understand that. I'm not going to go into the rest of the stuff over there because we're going to break for 10 minutes now at 7:30. But all you guys are saying yes. I did get a question from MG, or he's making a comment here. MG says the one with a lower opportunity cost has a comparative advantage on one of the products. MG, most of the time that's going to be the case. Yeah. Yes. I mean, I've never. Or let me wait. Let me backtrack a little bit. Let me think quickly. Let me think. I'm just going to the vaults. In terms of the Western Cape, right? There's a government document called the Provincial Economic Review and Outlook. So in that book, there is the annexure in chapter 3, where they actually show the Western Cape's revealed comparative trade advantage, which is exactly this, right? And the Western Cape's revealed, or let me rather say, comparative advantages is within the agri-processing space. So that is it's a proxy essentially for tobacco. It's more on the manufacturing side, but I'm forgetting now. Food, beverages, and tobacco. There we go. Food, beverages, and tobacco. So agri-processing. Right, we have a reveal comparative trade advantage in that. So exactly that, and these other things as well. Because of Atlantis, you can maybe say that you also have in TV production, right? Because of Hisense in Atlantis. Some other stuff is eluding me now. I'm forgetting, but there is a number of other things. Okay. Yeah. So, but in these examples over here, they will maybe just speak to one will have in these examples. They won't try and essentially trick you. Okay. I hope you understand that. And then Gideon says, hi Gershon, I'm just wondering, should we add South Africa to Italy? And between SA and Italy, Italy has the lowest opportunity cost for wine. What will happen then? Because Italy will rather focus on cheese when it comes to France. But between SA and Italy, they need to produce wine. So thank you for the question, Gideon. It's not about which country and what's being produced. It's just about trying to explain the scenario. Okay? And we're also not going to include more than one country. In other examples we can, but the idea over here is just to actually we can include more other countries, right? Because barring everything else we can. But the point is, whoever has the lowest opportunity costs, that is where you're going to specialize. But the reason why they're using France and Italy over here is just to highlight the points, right? The key takeaways from this is that Italy has absolute advantage in terms of wine and both wine and cheese production, but France is going to specialize in wine production and Italy is going to specialize in cheese production simply because they have a comparative advantage. Opportunity costs for producing those goods are the lowest. The trade-off is the lowest for producing those goods. Okay. Are we all good? Guys, we're going to take a little break for 10 minutes. Then we'll come back at 7:42. Then we're just going to go through the next example. I just want to show you where we're at. Right? We're just going to go through 2 examples and then we call it a day. Snap. Can we rather just make it 5 minutes, if you guys don't mind? Let's rather make it 5 minutes because I want to just talk a little bit to the end over here about the exchange rates. Because next week I need to go through the exchange rates and also the simple Keynesian model because we're getting close to finalizing our tutorials. Okay, so let's do 5 minutes. 7:38, if all of you guys are good. Well, let's make it till 7:40. Let's make it 8 minutes. Okay, 7:40. Thanks, guys. And we're back again. Okay. So just one quick question. I'm going to read it. If two countries have differing opportunity costs of production for two goods, then, right, and these are your options over here, right? A reads as follows. Each country should specialize in the good for which it has a higher opportunity cost of production. B, only the country with an absolute advantage in the production of both goods stands to gain from trade. C, each country should purchase inputs from the other country in order to gain an absolute advantage. Pardon. D, each country should specialize in the production of the good for which it has a relative advantage. And E, each country should import all goods instead of producing them domestically. Which one do you think is the right option? A, B, C, D, or E? These guys can just use the chat. %. I'm seeing everybody putting D over there. That's 100% correct. Each country should specialize in the production of the good for which it has a relative or comparative advantage, right? That's if two countries have differing opportunity costs of production for two goods, right? So here we got the next question, right? It says, consider the following table, which shows the production possibilities of two countries, A and B, right? Let me just try and make this a little bit bigger, right? The options are, which of the following statements is correct? Country A has an absolute advantage in the production of both tea and cocoa, and a comparative advantage in the production of tea. Option number 2 is country A has an absolute advantage in the production of both tea and cocoa, and a comparative advantage in the production of cocoa. Option number 3 is country B has an absolute advantage in the production of tea, and a comparative advantage in the production of cocoa. Option 4 is country B has an absolute advantage in the production of cocoa, and a comparative advantage in the production of tea. So now you're going to sit over and you think to yourself, Jeepers, where do I start? Just start off by doing this. Work it out. Okay, that's your opportunity costs. But your first point of call is going to be, right? You're going to look at this from the get-go. You're going to look at it, and then you're going to say to yourself, okay, fine. I know that absolute advantage, cool. Who produces more, right? Country A produces 90 units of cocoa, right? Versus country B's 20. So now I know cocoa, country A has an absolute advantage in the production of cocoa, right? Then I look at tea production. I see, okay, fine. Country A produces 60 units versus country B's 40 units. So from that, I know immediately that country A has an absolute advantage. Can we just mute over there, please? Thank you. So then we know that country A has an absolute advantage in the production of cocoa and tea production, right? So you make a note on the side over there. Now you know this. Now the next step is I'm going to have to work out my opportunity costs for me to know who has a comparative advantage in what, right? So now I'm going to work it out. Okay, can I have one of you guys and not the same people that speak normally? Hey guys, can we have something? It doesn't matter if you are right or you're wrong. The answer is in front of you, but I want you to speak to why you're doing certain things. Okay, and your copanology or your logic, your rationale in terms of working it out. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong.
I'll try.
Just speak. And who is it?
Melanie.
Hi, Melanie. Okay, thank you for giving it a shot. So you're welcome to go ahead. No,
Sure
it doesn't
thing.
matter if you're right or wrong.
I've always been wrong with this. If I get it right now, damn, I'm passing the exam third time round. Okay. Okay, so the first thing you would do is with country A, you work out the opportunity cost. So with the cocoa production for country A, 90 would be the, what's the bottom one? Denominator. Okay, that means you go 60 divided by 90, which is 0.6. And then you do the same thing for the tea production, but obviously 60 is the denominator. So it's 90 divided by 60, times by, sorry, you get 1.5, and then you divide that by 1 because you want to know the opportunity cost for 1 ton of tea or ton of cocoa, leaving you with 0.67 as an opportunity cost for the cocoa production for country A, and 1.5 as the opportunity cost for the cocoa production the tea production of country A. Moving down to country B, you do the same. It's 40 divided by 20, which gives you 2. You divide that by 1 because you want the opportunity cost for 1 ton of cocoa. And you do the same for the tea production.
Sorry,
for
Melanie,
country
can
B.
I just interject you quickly? Right. The one thing that I want to mention to everybody now, right? The reason why I'm moving from left to right and not from top to bottom. Top to bottom would make a lot of sense, because then you are seeing what the opportunity cost for 1 ton of cocoa is, right? But the reason why I'm moving from left to right is because I'm trying to highlight what's going to be your denominator. So in the case of cocoa production, the 90 is my denominator. In the case of tea production, my denominator is going to be 60. As opposed to working from top to bottom, then you're moving, then it's easier to show, okay, fine, what's going to be my denominator? Because it's not for you, only at the end you're going to basically see what your opportunity cost, the number for your opportunity cost is going to be, right? And then you can see which one is the lowest. So that makes it a bit easier for you to understand and actually work out which countries need to specialize in what. I don't know if you guys see that and understand what I'm saying. But sorry, Melanie, you can continue.
Okay, so just to clarify what you're saying now, Gushan, is what I should have done was done the opportunity cost for cocoa production for country A and then cocoa production for country B, and then move to the right and did the.
No. You were doing it right. I'm saying moving left to right.
Oh, right.
Versus moving from top to bottom. So you spot on. I'm just clarifying. I'm trying to say to everybody the reason why my rationale, in terms of explaining it to you, it makes it easy for you to understand and to work this stuff out. And then afterwards you can see, okay, what opportunity cost is the lowest. So the point is for you to understand, but it's also in that logic, I'm trying to show you what will work the easiest for you to understand and to work it out also in terms of what's the denominator and the numerator. I mean, the denominator is the one at the bottom. The numerator is the number on top. So I hope I didn't confuse more people, but that's the idea. So you can continue.
Right. So having worked out the opportunity cost for country B, for cocoa production, it's 40 divided by 20, which gives you 2, divided by 1, which still gives you 2. So the opportunity cost for country B for cocoa production is 2 tons of tea. Moving to the right, you've got 20 divided by 40, which is 0.5, divided by 1, and the opportunity cost for cocoa is therefore 0.5 tons. So then if you look at the total picture, and with regards to the question, the first thing I would have done was look at which countries had the absolute advantage And that is evidently of country A because their production is 90 and 60 compared to country B, whose production for cocoa is 20 and the production for tea is 40. So country A has the absolute advantage. The comparative advantage would be the country that has the lowest opportunity cost per product. Yeah. So cocoa country A has a 0.67 opportunity cost and for cocoa, and country B has a 2 opportunity cost for cocoa. Yeah, I think that's typo actually, because it says 2 tons of tea. But okay, moving along to the tea production. Country A has 1.5 opportunity cost, and in tea production, and country B has a 0.5 opportunity cost for tea. So the question, I think, if I can see, wants to know.
Can I just interject quickly? Can I just interject, Melanie? So as you can see, let's look at the first quadrant over here, right? We've got 0.67 tons of tea. So what I'm saying is, can you see that the denominator 0.67 divided by 1? That's why I put the 1 in over there, because I'm saying to you that the opportunity cost for producing 1 ton of cocoa, right? I mean cocoa over here.
Okay.
Right, the opportunity cost for 1 ton of cocoa. That's why I've got the ones in there. There's a reason why I included that. So 0.67 divided by 1 is 0.67. But the reason why I got the 1 there is I'm saying to you that the opportunity cost for producing 1 ton of cocoa is equal to 0.67 tons of tea. Right? And the one at the bottom over here, I'm saying the opportunity cost for producing 1 ton of cocoa is equal to 2 tons of tea. On the far right-hand side, the top right, I'm saying there the opportunity cost for producing 1 ton of tea, I'm in the tea producing column over here, right, is equal to 1.5 tons of production of cocoa production. So that's what I'm trying to relay. That.
Thank you.
No, it's fine, but for everybody else, does it make more sense? Actually, now finish off, and then we can actually ask some questions. I'll mute myself again now.
Okay, so in terms of the questions, the options, I chose answer 2 as well, because it said that country B has the competitive advantage in tea production, whereas I think question A also had the first option had country A with an absolute advantage in the production of tea and cocoa, but it didn't have the correct competitive advantage. I can't remember the other 2 options, but I stopped when I saw the right one at number 2 and therefore chose it because country B does have the competitive advantage in tea production. How many marks is this? Because then I get maybe 5 out of 75 or something.
No, thank you very much for that. Well done. Awesome job, eh? Awesome job. Just a further tip that I want to say to you guys. So when you have the question over there, on the right-hand side, maybe write for yourself. All right? Country A has absolute advantage in cocoa and tea production. Right? Then on the far right-hand side, write it over here in the question, and you say, okay, now fine. Once you've worked out all of the opportunity costs, then you're going to say to yourself, okay, now fine. In terms of cocoa production, right? Who has the lowest opportunity cost over here? It is country A, because it is 0.67 tons, right? Sorry, opportunity cost for 1 ton of cocoa is 0.6. 0.6 tons of tea is less than 2 tons. So therefore, I'm going to write on the far right-hand side that country A has a comparative advantage in cocoa production, right? Pardon. Then I'm going to look and see, okay, in terms of tea production, in terms of tea production, I'm going to say, okay, now fine. What's happening with tea production? Then I'm going to look for the lowest, 1.5 versus 0.5. Okay, clearly 0.5 is the lowest. Then on the far right-hand side, I'm going to write over here again that country B has a comparative advantage in tea production. So now I know I've got my answers on the right-hand side over here. So when I go to the question, right, then I'm going to page through this. Then on the far right, next to the question, I'm going to mark a cross for the ones that's the most obviously wrong. Right? When you do multiple choice questions, right? When you guys are sitting at home, please don't make things difficult for yourself. Right? You got the stuff in front of you, and you can write down the 11, 1, 2, or 3. Then on a separate piece of paper, I'll put 11, 1, and 2, and 3, 3, and 4. For 1, I know it's definitely wrong. I put the cross over there. Okay. Now I'm going to move to my next question, my next option. Okay. Let's say, for example, 3. Country B has an actual advantage in production T and a comparative advantage in production. Does it right? No, it's wrong. Then I move over to the next one. And by trial and error, right, you are actually increasing your probability of getting something right. So that's a nice thing about multiple choice. But of course, when you come to things that are a bit more trickier, you need to just sit down. So if you've got, let's say, example, 2 options out of the 4, you now have a 2 out of 4 chances of getting the right answer, as opposed to 4 out of 4. You see, so you actually have a 50% chance of getting something right. That's statistics, but yeah, I don't know if you guys are following me. But the point is, write on a piece of paper, and or if you're writing a written exam, then you put a cross where you know stuff is definitely wrong. Okay, I hope it makes sense. But other than that, thank you very much, Melanie. I wanted to ask you guys, is there any other questions on this? You see the Melanie, MG says, you go girl. So Gideon says, must the UOI be the same example tons? UOI, unit of. They're not going to try and make it difficult for you. It can be tons. The unit of exchange, you can maybe just put units. If I'm reading your question correctly, they're going to try and trick you with that. The point is just for you to work the stuff out. So they won't make it exceptionally difficult for you. They won't put that for you to have to work it out. Country A is 1960 or 20 and 40. You don't need to change that. Those numbers are going to be given to you. Okay, if I'm reading you correctly. And then how is D the answer? The answer is number 2. Try to go over here. Number 2 reads as follows: that country A has an absolute advantage in the production of both tea and cocoa, and a comparative advantage in the production of cocoa. Country A has an comparative advantage in the production of cocoa. Okay, so cool. Then the last little bit before we leave, I see we've got one more minute. The key takeaways that I want you to remember from this slide is that, let me just try and make it a bit bigger again. So we have the rand dollar exchange rate, right? The rand dollar exchange rate. This R divided by your dollar over there. Rand dollar exchange rate. On the vertical axis, what do we have? We've got the price of dollars. Right? Please write it down on the side, one of your notebooks over there. That's the price of dollars. On your horizontal axis at the bottom over here, we've got the quantity of dollars. This is the rand dollar exchange rate. Okay? So in other words, you've got your demand curve, sloping your negative demand curve. That's the demand for dollars. Right? Your supply curve, which is upward sloping, that's your supply for dollars. That's not rand, it's dollars. So say, for example, it had to be rand to the euro. right? We change the dollar sign to euro, right? Then on the vertical axis, what do we have? We've got the price of euro, right? Horizontal axis over there, we've got the quantity of euros. So what am I saying to you? It's the demand curve, the negative sloping line over here, is the demand for euros. It's not rand. The upward sloping supply curve over there is the supply of euros. So although it's a rand dollar exchange rate or rand euro exchange rate, what are we? We're saying that's demand or supply for the foreign currency. So as long as you remember that, okay, then you are almost good to go. The next time we speak about this, next class, then you're going to say to me, oh, all right. So on the far right hand side over here, all right, I'm going to speak to demand for dollars. All right, your D curve, your D curve over here, your demand, your negative sloping demand curve. A demand for dollars arises mostly from the requirements of SA importers. And the reason for that is, why are they demanding for dollars? SA importers are buying stuff from overseas. So they are demanding because they need to pay in foreign currency. That's why they're demanding those dollars. Okay. SA importers are buying stuff from overseas, right? So that's why they are demanding dollars, because they need to pay the people in dollars. Okay. The supply of dollars arises mostly from the revenue of SA exporters. Right? SA exporters, what are they doing? They are shipping stuff from overseas. They're shipping stuff to overseas, sorry. Because people are buying our stuff in South Africa. They are buying our citrus. They're buying our apples. So we're exporting it to the UK. We're exporting it to Germany. Right? They're demanding our goods and our services. So that is why we're getting a supply of dollars, because they're paying us in dollars. So I hope that makes a lot of sense, but essentially I'll explain a bit more of it in the next class, when we're going to just finish off with the foreign sector, and then we're going to kill off the simple Keynesian model. Okay. Thank you very much, guys. I didn't really talk to the unemployment problem, but it's really, really dire. Just lastly, we did see a decrease in unemployment rate, but it's not a good thing. Okay. Simply because you're unemployed, a lot of people that were unemployed became not active within the labor force. So that's another thing. Other thing that I also forgot to mention to you while I'm thinking about it now is that I never spoke to you about the economically active population. Those are your people between the ages of 16 and 64. Those are between those ages, but it excludes your full-time employment, full-time students, and it also includes housewives as well as people older, or pensioners. So it excludes full-time students, pensioners, and stay-at-home home moms. Okay. So other than that, thank you very much. If there's no other pressing questions, we can close off this evening, and then I'll see you guys next week on Tuesday. Thank you very much, guys.
Hi, Oliver. Sorry for joining in late. I've been looking for these recorded sessions. I can't find them anywhere. I missed the class today.
It is, what is your name?
It's Ndombi Zanele.
Ntombi.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was advised. How do you spell your surname?
It's Mali, M-A-L-I.
M-A-L-I.
Yes.
Okay, Mali. Sorry, I've got that. So I've made a note of it over here, but I have been advised that it is available. Other than that, I can send you a message. Okay.
Okay.
It's a pleasure.
Right, much appreciated.
Always a pleasure, eh? Are we all good?
Thank
Everybody
you.
else? Anya Stein is saying that someone did put on a link in the chats, and then everybody signed the attendance register. Hey guys, did everybody sign the attendance register?
I haven't signed.
No, no, it's fine. I'm going to type it in here very quickly for you. There is the attendance register. For those of you that have actually signed, you can log off now. Thank you very much. Have a good evening further. Remain safe and have a beautiful week. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Do you also want me to sign off?
No, no, I'm saying you, if you can finish off if you can just sign the register, I'll appreciate that.
Where do I sign it?
I put it, it's in the message chat, the meeting chat. There's a link over there. Look for the little, the conversation bar thingy on the top right-hand side. Well, actually the second one from next to showing the participants over there. It's in the meeting chat. Have you found it?
For the meeting chat.
Say again?
I'm looking for the meeting chat. I'm not winning. I'm doing it on my handset. So I am not winning this time around. Yes.
Let me just look at my phone quickly. So on your phone, it will say chat over there. You open up your at the bottom. It says activity, then chat, then teams, assignment, calendar, and more. All right, then you go to chat.
You see here with me, I have video, and then the speaker headset, and then dots that says put me on hold, turn off video or turn on video. I don't have much. Let me play around this. Chat. And I see the attendees. That's all. That's all I see for now.
And there's nothing about chat.
Meeting participants, no. Meeting participants. That's all I have.
And on the top far left-hand side?
Top far left-hand side, it's meeting participants also, or a share with to whoever I want to share to. Perhaps you can email me on my student account, or I can email you.
I don't know too much about that. You see, they're doing everything via online, and that's the only way that they actually, yeah. So, it's weird that you can't see the chat.
I can't on the phone, seriously.
It's fine, man. It's fine. Thank you very much. Thanks for trying, though.
Then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.